All right, so we are going to be writing a narrative ending to an already written story. So remember, a narrative is a story. A personal narrative is told by you, something that happened. You stubbed your toe, first time you rode a bike, when you went to Disneyland, okay? A narrative can also be fiction, and but also it could be, something that like really happened. So today you are going to be reading a, a story, and then you're going to finish that story. And so your story, you've actually read this story before, and I want you to read it again. And this was going on a hike, and it's how Kenny and his dad went on a hike. Read the story before you write the next part. So your objective is to write a narrative or a story about what happens next on their hike from where it left off. So this is where it left off and how you have fun, added Kenny. So you can actually kind of like write a part two or chapter two. You need to use details from the passage in your story, such as the characters. If you want to put in a different setting, the setting of the story takes place in the mountains. Remember, they went on a hike. If you want to change the setting, that's completely fine. But it does need to be Kenny and his dad. If you want to add characters, you can. You can have another adventure if you want. It is completely up to you, or they can continue their hike. Remember, a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. So you will be writing that. You can use characters that are in the story. We already talked about that. So your plan, you have an organization, and you have content. And you can read through those. You can use transition words, first, next, then last if you like. Story has a clear beginning. So a good beginning tells what the narrative is about, includes who, what, when, where, and why. So you can continue it by explaining what their next adventure is going to be or continuing their story. The middle to help it helps us view or picture of your event. So kind of maybe if there's a problem that's going to happen in the middle. And a solution to that problem is going to happen at the end if you have a problem. If not, a narrative just kind of tells you kind of an event. And like in this story, the narrative is that they're taking a hike. And a good ending helps your reader remember. You're going to fill out this plan. So this is part of your plan. Just kind of roughly explain what you want to do. So remember, beginning, you're going to name the characters, where it takes place, or the next adventure, whatever it may be. The middle, if you have a problem. If not, it kind of just explains more of what they're doing. If they're continuing to hike or if they're doing another adventure, then you need to explain what's going on there. And the ending, of course, if it's a solution or an ending to their adventure. You'll write your story here. A lot of times the beginning would be one paragraph and the middle will be second paragraph and the ending can be a third paragraph. It depends on how you set that up. Let me read an example, and you don't want to copy, but let me read an example for you. Okay, here we go. This is how Kenny and his dad's adventures continued. First, Kenny and his dad were heading back up the Rocky Mountains when suddenly a gust of wind blew the map that looked like a spider web out of Kenny's hand. Kenny was scared. Kenny's dad said, let's set up camp and let's try to find our way back tomorrow morning at 9. Second, they had no food, one bottle of water, so they went to look for good food and some fresh water. So this is a really good narrative. She did underline green, yellow, and red, and that's not something that you have to do in a narrative. So uh, because green, yellow, and reds are yellow's reason, detail, or fact, and red is explaining. So this green, yellow, and reds are really not a place for a narrative or a story. It's for more of explaining. Let's continue to read her story. Second, they had no food, one bottle of water, so they went to look for good food and some fresh water. Kenny found a little lake with blue fresh water, and his dad found some big apple trees. The apples looked red and small. Next, they woke up with a big, warm sun shining on their faces, birds singing a wonderful song, and the sound of water from the freshwater lake. Then Kenny looked down at the ground. He saw his footprints and his dad's footprint. And so they followed them and they were very happy because they found their red car. And then they headed back to the city. In conclusion, this is how Kenny and his dad had a great adventure ended. Um, so she did it all in one paragraph, which is fine. And because you guys really have not worked on more multi-paragraphs, but again, you do not need the green, yellow, and red in a story that you've written. But it is a good continuation of the story about Kenny and his dad and taking a hike. So that's something that you can do. I've had students say they returned home and Kenny wanted to go on another adventure. So they went on another adventure and they went to the ocean and they had an adventure at the ocean. And that's something that you could do where it takes place in a different setting. Or you can continue it in the mountains. So there's a lot of different options. It's completely up to you, but you do have to use the same characters and you can add characters if you like, but you can't take away the main characters because this is a part two or a continuation of the story. On those, it's completely up to you and be as creative as you like and have fun with it. All right, have a great day. Happy writing.